Welcome back. In this video, we're going to touch upon the topic that shows up all the time, not just in exams, but in real life too. Simple versus compound interest. Now we're going to break down what each one means, how they're calculated, and most importantly, what's the difference between the two. So by then, you'll know exactly when to use which formula and how to avoid common mistakes. Okay, now before we get into simple and compound interest, we must be aware of the difference or what exactly the key terms involved mean. Okay, so what does interest mean? Let's begin with interest. Now, if you are investing an amount or saving an amount in a bank, the money that you're going to earn on that investment or that amount is interest. But it also works the other way. If you're borrowing money or you're taking out a loan from the bank or another person, the amount or the extra amount basically that you're going to pay to the lender along with the initial amount that you borrowed is also known as interest. Okay, so you can earn interest on an investment or you can pay interest on a loan. Okay, so investment, money earned on savings or investment. While when you take out a loan, the extra amount to be paid for borrowing money. Okay, so depending on the question or the scenario given, interest can be earned or it can be paid. Okay, so I hope you're clear on what interest is. Now, what is R? R is the rate of interest. And usually it is per annum. Per annum means every year. But this may vary depending on the question. Okay, and the initial amount that you invest or the initial amount that you borrow is known as the principal amount. The amount of money you invest or borrow. Okay. The rate of interest is always is in percentage. Okay, so the key terms involved are interest, the rate of interest, and the principal amount. So basically, for example, if you deposit $1,000 in your savings account, so the principal amount would be $1,000, and the deal that works out with the bank is that the bank is going to pay you 10% per annum on that $1,000. So the rate of interest would be 10. Okay, and what is the interest amount that you're going to earn? It's going to be 10% of that 1,000, which is what? 10% of 1,000, $100, right? So the interest amount that you're going to earn is $100. Okay, now these were the key terms. Let's dive into the concept. Let's begin with simple interest. Okay, for simple interest, so there's one formula for simple interest and one for compound interest. You need to memorize both. There's no shortcut for that. Okay. So the formula for that is interest, for simple interest, is I into P into R into T over 100. Okay? Where I stands for the interest, amount of interest basically. Amount of interest earned or to be paid. P is the principal amount. R is the rate of interest. And T is the time. Okay? So I hope the formula is clear. We're going to learn how to apply it. But for now, you need to memorize I is equals to PRT over 100, where I is going to be the total amount of interest that you earn over a period of T years. T is time, the number of years. Okay? P is the principal amount that you're going to invest. R is the rate of interest that is going to determine the amount of interest you're going to earn. Okay, now let's apply this formula to a question so that it becomes a bit clear. So for example, you invest $300 at 4% simple interest for 5 years. Okay? So what does it mean? It means that every year for 5 years, you would receive 4% of 300. Okay? So basically, अगर हम अभी ये formula को छोड़ दें, okay, so let's try solving. So you are going to get 4%, you're going to get 4% of $300 for how many years? For 5 years. ठीक है, तो पहले हम एक साल का निकालते हैं. So 4% means 4 over 100 of 300 is what? It's going to be $12. So in year 1, you're going to get $12. But you're going to get simple interest for 5 years. It means for 5 years, you're going to get $12 each year. Okay, $12 each year for 5 years. So what is the total amount of interest that you're going to earn? It's going to be $60. Okay, so the total interest that you're going to earn in 5 years is $60. So you invested $300. Year 1, you had $300. And at the end of year 5, you're going to have $300 plus 60, $360. Why? Because you've earned $60 in 5 years. Okay? This is without applying the formula. So you're just generally solving it using simple mathematical logic. Acha ji. Now let's apply the formula here and see if it works. Okay? Okay. So here it goes. So I is equals to P RT over 100. I we need to calculate. P is the principal amount, which is $300. R is the interest rate. T is the number of years. So let's substitute these values. 300 into 4 into 5 over 100. This is going to cancel out and we have 20 into 360. So this formula is going to give you the total interest that you're going to earn over a period of 5 years. Okay, so what is the if they ask you what is the amount that you're going to receive at the end of 5 years, you're not going to write $60. In addition to the $60, you will have the principal amount added to it, the amount that you invested at the start of year 1. So the total final value of your bank balance is going to be $300. plus the interest that you've earned over the period of 5 years. So the total amount that you're going to get is $360. Okay, so you have to be clear about this formula. You need to understand that I is going to give you the total amount of interest that you're going to earn over the specified number of years. Okay, P is the principal amount that you're going to invest in the bank, and R is the rate of interest that the bank or whoever is in the question decides against the amount or the principal amount that you're investing or borrowing. Okay. One important thing that you need to understand here is that in case of simple interest, once you decide the amount of interest in year one, so in this case, the interest amount is $12 per year, per month. Sorry, per year, right? So it is going to be $12 every year. The amount of interest is not going to change. The rate of interest will be 4%. The amount of interest will be $12 each year. This is not going to be the case in compound interest, but we will touch upon it once we get there. For now, just understand and keep in mind that the amount of interest in case of simple interest is going to be the same. Okay, let's do another example to make sure that simple interest is clear. So for example, Yusuf invested $2,000 for 3 years and received $2,180 at the end. Calculate the rate of interest. Okay, girls, you need to understand and you need to keep in mind that for simple interest, this is the formula that we're always going to use in one way or another. But this is the only formula. Okay? So let's start. So Yusuf invested $2,000. So what is P? P is $2,000 for 3 years. So T is going to be 3 years. And received $2,180 at the end. Calculate the rate of interest. And R you need to calculate. Okay, so what is the formula that we are going to apply? PRT over 100. So interest is equals to PRT over 100. Now we have P, we need to find R, and we also have T. Now to solve a single equation, we need to have only one unknown, right? तो अगर एक equation है सिर्फ एक unknown को हम solve कर सकते हैं. So we need to find R. Is there any way we can calculate what is the amount of interest that Yusuf earned over these 3 years? So they're telling us that at the end of 3 years, he received 2,180. He invested 2,000 and he got 2,180 at the end of 3 years. So what is the amount of interest that he's earned? ठीक है, 2,000 इन्वेस्ट किया था बैंक में और 3 सालों बाद मिला कितना है 2180 और तो कुछ नहीं किया. सो इन 3 सालों में आपके इंटरेस्ट की वजह से आपकी अमाउंट चेंज होती है. So the interest amount earned over a period of 3 years would be the final amount that you have in the bank minus the principal amount. So basically, Yusuf earned $1,080 in interest. Okay, now let's just insert these values into the formula. So I is $180, P is $2,000, R we need to find, T is 3 years over 100. Now our equation only has one unknown. We can just rearrange it, make R the subject and find the value of the interest rate. So let's just solve it. So this is going to be 180 equals to 60R. So the rate of interest is going to be 180 over 60. So R is 3%. Okay. So the questions for simple interest and compound interest, they're relatively easy. They're pretty straightforward. There isn't much that you have to do. For simple interest, keep in mind this is the formula that is going to be used. In one way or another, they're going to maybe give you the interest rate, the principal amount, and the amount of interest that a person is earning, and you need to find the number of years. They might give you the interest rate, time, and amount of interest, and you might have to, find the principal amount. But in one way or another, this is the formula that is going to be used. Okay, so just memorize it, and that should be all for simple interest. And once again, the amount of interest that is charged every year in simple interest, it is the same. Okay. However, that is not the case in compound interest. Okay. Compound interest. So how is compound interest different from simple interest? Let's copy this example. Wait. So this is the example that we did, right? For simple interest. We're going to do it for compound interest so that we can compare. Just a second. Okay. Copy. Paste. Okay. Okay. So this is simple interest. Here we are going to compare it with compound interest. Okay. Let's use a different color. So year one is going to be the same. Okay. So when compound interest is earned, the amount of interest is different each year. Why? Let's see. So in year one, you're going to get 4% of 300, which is going to be $12. Okay. So now what is the amount that you have in your bank at the end of year one? It's going to be 300 plus 12. So you have $312 in your bank, right? Now the difference comes in year two. In year two, for simple interest, in year two, you're going to get $12 again. Okay. In year three, you're going to get $12. Year four, you're going to get $12. However, what happens here is that in year two, in compound interest, you're going to get 4% of the amount that you have in your bank at the end of year one, which is $312. Okay, so in simple interest, you're going to get 4% of 300 every year for the number of years decided in the agreement at the start. For compound interest, they're always going to charge the interest, the rate of interest on the amount of money or the bank balance at the end of every year. So that is going to change. Your bank balance is going to change every year because a certain amount of interest is going to be added at the end of the year, right? So at the start of the year, we had $300 in our account. We earned 4% interest on it, which amounts to $12. So at the end of year one, you will have 300 plus the interest amount earned, which is $12. So 300 plus 12. So going to have $312 at the end of year one. So next year, you're going to earn interest on $312, not $300. Okay. So this is going to be 12.48. Okay, so the amount of interest is now different from what you're going to earn in simple interest. In simple interest, you're going to earn $12. In compound interest, you're earning $12.48. Okay, and now what do you have in your bank account at the end of the year? You are going to have 312 plus 12.48. So you have 324.48 at the end of year 2. Okay, so in year 3, what are you going to earn? In year 3, you're going to earn 4% of the amount that you have in the bank. So the amount is 324.48. So 4% of 324.48 is $12.9792. Okay. So at the end of year 3, you have this plus 324.48. So you have 337.4592. Okay, so year 4, you're going to earn 4% of 337.4592, which is 13.498368. And at the end of year 5, you're going to earn 4% of. So you're going to add the interest earned with what you already had in account, 337.4592 plus 13.498. So it gives you 350.9575 and so on, into 4 divided by 100. So in year 5, you're going to earn 14.038. And we have a lot of digits after that. So let's just leave it here. Okay, so see, the amount of interest that you're going to earn at the end of year 5 or during year 5 is $12. However, in case of compound interest, you're earning 14.038. So your final bank balance, final amount in your bank at year end in case of compound interest will be this plus this, so plus 350.9575. So you have $364.9958 in your bank account after 5 years. However, in case of simple interest, you had $360. In case of compound interest, you have $364.9958. Okay, now what is the formula that you can use to directly just apply the concept of compound interest? So the formula is basically your final bank balance or the value of investment this is also known as the final bank balance is P into 1 plus R over 100 over N. Okay, where P is the principal amount, R is the rate of interest, N is the number of times interest is compounded. You can also change it N as D, the number of years. However, we will practice an example where the interest compounded is more than once in a year. So in that case, you need to understand that N is the number of times the interest is compounded. Usually it is annually, per annum ही होता है, but in case it is not done yearly, it is done at a different interval, maybe after every 6 months or every 3 months. So then we have to first calculate the number of times the interest is compounded, and then we substitute that in place of n. However, if no such thing is specified in the question, you can use n as the number of years. Okay? Okay, it is also convenient if you just simplify what is in the bracket. So if you have fractions, you take LCM in order to carry out the calculation. So we have 100 plus R over N. So both of these are the same. I would recommend that you use this form because even if you're using this one, eventually this is what you're going to do most of the time. Okay, so you can just memorize the formula for compound interest. Okay, this is not. So this is for compound interest. Okay. So girls, again, there's no shortcut for this. You need to memorize this formula. V, or the final bank balance that you will have at the end of n years, is going to be P into 100 plus R over 100 raised to the power n. Okay? Now the calculation that we did here, all of this can be done simply this one with this formula. So what was the question? The question was that you invest this. Okay. Okay. So this was the question. Now what are we going to do? We are going to apply the formula that we've learned. Okay. So what is the formula? V is equals to P into 100 plus R over 100 raised to the power n. Let's substitute values. What is P? P is 300. What is R? 4 over 100 raised to the power 5 for n number of years. Okay. So V is equals to 300 over 104 over 100 raised to the power 5, which is the same as 300 into 1.04 raised to the power 5. Okay, please try and understand this. This is something that is also going to crop up in exponential growth and decay, right? So you need to understand why we're doing this calculation. Okay, so if you solve it using a calculator, the answer that you're going to retrieve is 364.9958707, which is the same as this one. Okay, so you don't have to do this calculation, all of this. This was just to make you understand why the compound interest works differently than simple interest. So you're going to get the same answer using this formula. Most of the time, this is going to come in P2 because you would sometimes need calculators to solve this question. However, if it is cropping up in P1, remember that the calculations are going to be very easy. Okay? वो अगर P1 में दे रहे हैं, आप without calculator solve कर सकते हो, so you don't have to worry about it. Okay, now I hope that you're clear about the difference between simple and compound interest. Very quickly, simple interest, simple versus compound. So in simple, what is the formula that you're going to use? I is equals to PRT over 100, and the amount of interest is same every year. Okay? And for compound interest, the formula that we're going to use is V, or F, is equals to P into 100 plus R over 100 raised to the power n. The amount of interest is going to vary every year. Okay. I hope both the points are clear. If there's any confusion, I would suggest that you stop the video, okay, and you go back, review everything in order to make sure that no confusion is um, left uh, before moving on. Okay, so please, girls, make sure that you're absolutely clear on the difference between simple interest and compound interest before moving on. Okay, now what we're going to do is one example to see if you're clear about compound interest. So an amount of $2,500 is invested for years at a compound interest or a compound rate of 12% per annum. Per annum means every year. Okay, so you have to calculate the value of investment after 4 years. And second part is you have to work out how much interest is earned over these 4 years. Okay, girls, before I solve this question, I want you to also understand something else. So the formula for simple interest, it gives you the amount of interest that you're going to earn over a period of 2 years, right? And then you need to add this amount of interest into the principal amount to figure out what you're going to have at the end of 2 years. So the principal amount plus the interest that you've earned over those 2 years. In case of compound interest, V gives you the final bank balance that you're going to have in your bank account at the end of end time period. Okay, and if you want to calculate the amount of interest that you've earned, what are you going to do? You're going to subtract the principal amount from the final bank balance that you have at the end of n years. Okay, so for example, you invested $1,000 and at the end of 20 years, you have $2,000 in your account. So it means 2,000 minus 1,000. So you've earned $1,000 as interest. Okay. This gives you the amount of interest, and if you want to calculate the final bank balance at the end of 2 years, you're going to add the amount of interest earned with the principal amount, and that is going to give you the final bank balance. However, the compound interest formula gives you the final bank balance, and if you want to calculate the interest amount earned, you're going to subtract principal amount from the final bank balance. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so compound, let's look at the keywords. It is invest the compound rate. Okay, so compound rate means we're going to use this formula, P into 100 plus R over 100 raised to the power N. The amount of $2,500 is invested, so P is going to be $2,500 at a compound rate of 12%. R is 12%. Calculate the value of investment after 4 years. So N is going to be 4. Let's insert these values into the formula. So we're going to have 2,500, 100 plus 4 divided by 100 raised to the power of, sorry, R is 12. Sorry. Raised to the power of 4. Okay, so this is going to be 2,500 into 112 divided by 100 raised to the power of 4. V is 2,500 into 1.12 raised to the power of 4. So what is the final bank balance that you have, or the value of investment that you have after 4 years? If you utilize a calculator, you're going to get this as the answer. So $3,933.80 at the end of 4 years. Okay, so that is your answer to part A. Now work out how much interest is earned over these 4 years. So we will solve this in a different color so we don't have to utilize another page. Okay, so the final bank balance or the amount of investment is $3,933.80. And what is the amount that had been invested? It was $2,500. So अगर $2,500 था start में and at the end of 4 years we have $3,933. So ये change कैसे आया amount में? It has been changed by the interest amount earned. So to calculate the interest, what are we going to do? We are going to subtract the final amount that we have in our bank from the principal amount, which is going to be 1433.80. Okay, so this came out as our final bank balance, and this is what we invested in the bank at the start. Okay, so $2,500 invest किया था, and at the end of 4 years we had 3,933. तो हमारी जो amount जो principal amount में change हुआ, final bank balance 2,500 से 3,933 कैसे हुआ? Because we've earned interest over it. तो वो interest कितना, हम इन दोनों का difference लेंगे, that is going to give us the interest amount. Okay, now one final question or example where we're going to see what happens if the interest is compounded at a rate which is different from, it's not applied yearly, so it is compounded at a different interval. Okay, so let's see. Yusuf borrowed $1,000 from the bank for a period of 18 months. Okay, so interest on the loan is compounded at a rate of 4% every 3 months. Calculate the total amount that Yusuf must pay back to the bank. So you need to calculate the total amount that Yusuf must pay back to the bank. Okay, so now here, because they've specified that the interest is compounded every 3 months, n is going to be the number of times the interest is compounded. Okay, कितने months हैं? 18 months हैं. 18 months. And interest is compounded every 3 months. तो कितनी दफा interest compound होगा 18 month period में? So 18 divided by 3 is going to 6 times. Okay, so over a period of 18 months, the interest will be compounded 6 times because हर 3 महीने बाद interest compound होगा. So 3, 6, 9. So after 9 months, then after 12 months, and then after 15, and then 18. So 6 times. So the value of n will become, okay, and because it is compound interest, first let's write down the formula. And then let's write down the values. So P is $1,000. part is 4%. N in this case is going to be 6 because the interest has been compounded 6 times over a period of 18 months. Okay, so let's just substitute the values. So 1000 into 100 plus 4 over 100 is to the power 6. So final would be 1000. 104 divided by 100 would be 1.04 is to the power 6. And the answer that we get is $1265.32. Okay, so Yusuf is going to return $1,265.32 to the bank for a loan that was initially a loan of $1,000. Okay, so interest kitna diya usne? Even though the question is not asking, but just to make sure that you understand that he borrowed $1,000, he's paying back $1,265.32 to the bank, but he borrowed $1,000 only. So what is the amount of interest that he has paid? So he's basically paying $265.32 for a $1,000 loan. Okay. So this is it from for simple and compound interest. Please make sure that you're absolutely clear about the difference between the two, and you need to memorize the formulas. These formulas, they are of absolute importance, crucial importance, and also understand what they're basically calculating. So this is calculating the amount of interest. Compound interest formula is calculating the amount of money that you're going to have at the end of the entire time period, the final bank balance, right? And that's the difference between simple interest and compound interest. Two concepts that are not only important for your exams, but also super useful in real life. Remember that the more you practice, the more confident you'll feel. You're doing great, so just keep going. Up next, we're moving into exponential growth and decay, a topic that's closely linked to what we've just covered. So be sure to check out that video to keep the momentum going. And if you found this helpful, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more. Good luck, and I will see you next time.